But I knew their armor had a crack now. That fake signature on the easement form, it meant fraud. And if I could prove the HOA had acted outside its legal boundaries, not just with me, but across the board, it could all come down. The whole thing. Still, I had to be smart. One wrong move, and they'd bury me in legal threats or worse. So I stayed quiet, gathered everything, and kept smiling at Carl during his smug little morning walks past my property. Because I had one document left to file, and once I did, everything would change. Just when I thought I had everything lined up, something unexpected happened. My evidence disappeared. The printed emails, the boundary maps, even the signed statements from neighbors, gone. I had kept them in a locked cabinet in my garage, and overnight, it had been broken into. Nothing else was touched. Not the tools, not the bikes, just the folder with everything I needed to prove the HOA's misconduct. That's when it hit me. Someone was watching, and they knew I was getting close. I couldn't prove who did it, but it wasn't hard to guess. Carl had connections, and one of his buddies worked in private security. Suddenly, what started as a land dispute felt more like a chess game with someone willing to bend every rule to win. I had to change tactics. So I stopped going to HOA meetings, stopped asking questions in public, let them think I'd backed off. Meanwhile, I started recording every conversation, every mailbox notice, every new violation they posted on my door. I even got a small camera pointed at the train car, just in case someone came back. Then came the second twist. I got a call from a former HOA board member who had quietly stepped down months ago. She said she had proof, real proof, that Carl had been operating without a valid board vote for over a year. And she was finally ready to talk. I met her at a small coffee shop on the edge of town, neutral ground. She looked nervous, constantly glancing at the door, but when she started talking, everything clicked into place. Carl had been running the HOA solo for months. The rest of the board had either resigned or were never officially elected. The so-called votes were never logged. And worse, had been forging signatures to pass motions, including the one that brought the train car onto my land. She handed me a USB drive. It had emails, meeting recordings, and copies of internal complaints from former members. It was more than enough. I filed everything with the county and attached a formal petition to dissolve the HOA, citing fraud, misuse of power, and improper governance. Just one signature was needed from a property owner not under valid HOA authority, mine. That was all it took to start the legal process. A month later, the court ruled in my favor. The HOA was dissolved. The train car was removed within days. Carl, he vanished from the neighborhood before the final hearing. No goodbye, no explanation, just gone. But here's the twist. A week after the ruling, I got a letter in the mail. No return address. Inside was a single photo, an aerial shot of my property with a red X marked across it. No note, just that. So, yeah, the HOA's gone. But the story? Maybe it's not over yet. After the letter showed up, I won't lie, I didn't sleep much. I installed more cameras, updated my locks, even changed my routines for a while. But weeks passed, then months. Nothing happened. Eventually, I realized the letter was probably just someone trying to scare me into silence. But the truth was already out. The HOA was gone, and there was no going back. After the letter showed up, I won't lie, I didn't sleep much. I installed more cameras, updated my locks, even changed my routines for a while. But weeks passed, then months. Nothing happened. Eventually, I realized the letter was probably just someone trying to scare me into silence. But the truth was already out. The HOA was gone, and there was no going back. Slowly, things returned to normal. I finished building my workshop. Neighbors started stopping by, not with complaints, but with support. People who once kept their heads down were finally speaking up. Some even thanked me for standing my ground, saying they felt like they could breathe again without Carl and his rules hanging over them. Neighbors, No fines, no power trips, just people trying to live in peace. Looking back, I never set out to bring down an entire HOA. I just wanted to use my land without being bullied. But it taught me something important. Sometimes the system doesn't fix itself. Sometimes you have to stand up, even if it means standing alone at first. So yeah, one signature might seem small, but when it's backed by truth and a little courage, it can move a train, or even erase it completely. Thanks for watching. If you've ever dealt with a nightmare HOA or faced something similar, drop your story in the comments. You never know who else might need to hear it. They thought a train would stop me. That's right, an actual train. One day, I looked out at my own land and saw that the HOA had ordered a vintage train car to be dropped right across my property line. No warning, no explanation, just this massive, rusted symbol of control blocking my access. Most people would have backed off, but I wasn't about to let a group of power-hungry neighbors tell me what I could or couldn't do on my own land. This wasn't just some petty dispute over fence heights or mailbox colors. This was personal. It was about principle. The HOA had been making life miserable for a while. Ridiculous fines, surprise rule changes, and non-stop harassment. But this train stunt, that was the last straw. What they didn't expect was that a single signature, just one, would set off a chain reaction that would dismantle their entire HOA. Legally, no shouting matches, no lawsuits, just a clever, quiet move that flipped the whole script. But before I could take that step, I had to find out who was really behind the train plan and why they were so determined to push me out. What I uncovered next changed everything and made it clear this wasn't just about me anymore. And that's where things started to get really interesting. It all started a year earlier when I bought this quiet little plot on the edge of the neighborhood. It wasn't part of the HOA when I signed the papers. At least, that's what I was told. I planned to build a small workshop and finally get some peace away from city noise. But almost immediately, I started getting letters from the HOA claiming my land fell under their rules. I ignored the first few, thinking it was just a mistake. But then came the fines, $150 for unauthorized gravel, $75 for non-standard window trim. I tried to reason with them. I showed documents proving my land wasn't listed under their control, but the board kept pushing, saying their updated map included my parcel. They even sent someone to measure my grass. That's when I knew this wasn't just confusion, it was deliberate. Neighbors warned me the HOA president, a guy named Carl, was known for targeting anyone who didn't play by his rules. People said he ran the board like his own little kingdom, and those who challenged him usually gave up or moved away. But I'm not wired like that. Then one morning, I showed up and saw the train car sitting right there, blocking my driveway. No note. No warning, just silence. That's when I decided it was time to fight back. At first, I thought the train car had to be a mistake, some weird delivery gone wrong. But when I asked around, a neighbor quietly told me Carl bragged about it at the last HOA meeting. Said it was a creative way to send a message. Turns out, the board claimed the train was part of a new historic preservation project, conveniently placed right across my private access point. It wasn't just about rules anymore, it was about power. I tried calling the city, but they said the HOA had filed a temporary easement request for neighborhood enrichment. Total nonsense. I even checked the zoning office myself. That's when I noticed something strange. The signatures on the request form didn't match the board members' names listed in the HOA charter. Someone had signed off under fake names. That was the crack in the wall. I started digging through public records, old HOA filings, property maps, anything I could get my hands on. And that's when I discovered something big. The HOA had quietly redrawn the boundaries years ago, expanding their reach without proper consent. They were using outdated maps to fine people, enforce rules, and now drop train cars. Meanwhile, I heard whispers that other neighbors had faced the same bullying but were too scared to speak up. What really got me One elderly couple had sold their home at a loss just to get away from the pressure. Something was seriously wrong here. The deeper I looked, the darker it got. I found emails, yes, actual emails, between Carl and a couple of board members where they joked about pushing out the troublemakers and reclaiming rove lots. My land wasn't the first they targeted, just the one where someone finally pushed back. That train wasn't about history, it was about intimidation. I started talking to neighbors, quietly, one by one. Some were nervous, looking over their shoulders like we were planning a heist. Others had stories of their own. One guy got fined for having a garden shed that was 2 inches taller than allowed. A single mom had her car towed because she parked in her own driveway during a repaint. No one had ever questioned the HOA, because Carl had built this image that they were untouchable.